tangible these days, especially in the world of working, human resources, and talent development. So hope you're all having a great day. And there were some great talks yesterday, some great talks today. There will be some, the spirit and motivation will be continuing tomorrow and Monday as well. Don't forget, join us all the time from the comfort of your home, your kitchen, or wherever you are around the world. It's all virtual. Graduate Aspire 2021. So our topic this afternoon is expectations versus reality of working. Why is that topic so important? Because that topic is important because a lot of you are entering or going to be going to the workforce for the very first time, getting your first paycheck ever. Every month you look forward to that payday, training and development, wanting to get promoted, wanting to learn new skills, building relationships with people. The list goes on and on and on. Everybody has different career expectations and career needs, but here to help us answer that question and much, much more on this topic is, well, four very, very established professionals in no particular order. On my left, I'm going to introduce Encik Azharin bin Abdul Latif, Senior Vice President, Human Resource Relationship Management. Give us a wave, Encik Azharin. Nice shirt that you're wearing there, wearing your heart on your sleeve on this wonderful Saturday afternoon. And then the wonderful lady on my right, well, no, sorry, this right, opposite screen, is the one and only Nadia Tan Abdullah. I've got a story to tell you about Nadia. She interviewed me many years ago for my first job, and she gave me some good career advice back then. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. And then below Azharin on the screen, that is the one and only Chen Pong Tuan, HR and General Affairs Director of Samsung. I call him FT. And he used to work for a bank. So once upon a time, the joke was that he was a financial transaction advisor, so FT, but now he's all about Samsung and he's very, very passionate about HR, just like our full panel. And then last but not least, we have Latifa Dawood, Head of Strategic Human Capital Management and the one and only Khazanah National. So, all our speakers speak very well, very inspirational. I'll give you a bit of warning that you will be inspired by their speech, their wisdom, their knowledge, their sharing. And these are individuals who don't mind saying, look, I got it wrong, but I look forward to get it right. So, it's not about blaming people, it's about being accountable and moving forward. So that's what expectations versus reality of working life is. Panel, how are you? Give us a graduate 2021 wave. Alama, you can do better than that. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Sing a song about your company. Okay. All right, well, the brightest person on the screen is Latifa. So what's this, Latifa? Because you're wearing blue, very bright blue, I might say. Okay, brighter than my blue that I'm wearing. Can you, I'm sorry to ask you this question. I'm not insulting your age. You are all very young. I think you're all under 22, so don't worry. Okay, but can you recall some, expectations, that's my favorite word. Okay, it's about management of expectations. You're trying to appease your boss. Your boss is trying to appease your boss. Okay, every time people come to an interview, they have an expectation. Every time people ask something, they have an expectation. Expectation. So can you recall some of the expectations that you had when you first knocked on doors to look for your first career break to enter the working world?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ben. It's really great to start this conversation with that word expectation, because certainly you're right, it was like many years ago that I started looking for a job.
Not so long.
Expectation is what you have when you step out, right? Expectation is what you have when you start listing the companies that you want to go for. And of course, as a young graduate, I recall that, I list like 3 or 4 companies. I said, these are the only companies that I want to work for. And you go out and start looking, and then lo and behold, I came back. It was, so you will know my age by the time I finish the story, because I've gone through at least 3 down cycles, like serious down cycles, right? So in those days, in the 80s, we had, when I came back, we go look for a job. And fortunately, in those days, for graduates, we had the traditional way of looking for a job. You write in, you write in, and you don't have all the tools that young graduates currently have. So you really have to work very hard, send in like 20, 30 resumes, applications, and then you wait. So those were exciting days, and you get responses, then you go for the interviews. It's the same process, except the difference is probably the competition then was not as huge as now. Yeah. So my expectation then was like, whoa, when I applied, I thought I did pretty well. So I obviously thought, oh, if I apply, I can, I'll get at least half positive responses, right? Lo and behold, that's not the case, because, while grades and your degree is one thing that employees look for, they also look for other criteria, other things, right? Other fit. Then that's when you first realize that, oh, my expectation to the job that I want will also have to match with the employer's expectation of the person that they want, right? So expectations is both ways. So I think that's probably where I would like to stop, and then we can continue that conversations.
No, well, great answer. It's never easy being the first person to answer the question. So kudos to you and to the panel. If you want to disagree politely or agree with each other, please go ahead. I encourage you all not to agree, because it makes great TV content when you disagree and you say you are incorrect because, but you do it politely lah, because that's what makes good conversation. If you all say I agree, it's going to be a very predictable afternoon. So I'll stay with you for this question, the next question, Latifa, before I move on to Nadia. And okay, like the first word is expectation. The second word, I think, is a relatively positive word, but everybody sees it as a negative word. It's called mistake. And we Malaysians, we are so scared of making mistakes. We make one mistake, I think we're going to have a baby, or, we want to quit our job or whatever. But as I always tell my children, and I only learned this much later, what do you take out of the miss? So see it as a positive. So and I'm going to ask the panel this a little bit later. Everybody will get a chance to have their version of this answer to this question. What's your view of mistakes and in terms of nurturing talent, whether they are on the younger side or slightly on the mid-career side?
That's another good word, mistake. Mistake is a necessity to learn, right? So, but the key is you make the mistake, you learn from it, and don't repeat the mistake. Your employee will look at it that way too. So I made many mistakes along the way, but my first mistake, if I recall, was I got my first job very, very early on and quickly get a job. And then a few months later, I got another job offer with one of the 3 companies that I really wanted to work for. So excitedly, I resigned from the first job when I already received the offer letter and accepted the second job with the company that I was dreaming about, right? But I failed the medical test. So that was a mistake of judgment on my part. That was a very expensive mistake for me. So I had to go through, I recovered from it. So that's a mistake that I learned early on. Well, that is a mistake of judgment, a mistake of, being overconfident and say, oh, everything should be okay. So there are things that sometimes you're being tested on that you don't know where that's going to come from. So I think one of the things about being ready for mistakes is you must quickly get up and don't dwell on it, because mistake happen is, I think, very, very unlikely, very difficult to undo a mistake that already happened. So what I learned is you just have to get up, just brush off your slacks and start walking or running again. So that will be my, from my experience, that is what I would do, and I would advise young people to do. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. You will make mistakes. In life, mistake is one of our best teachers. So, learn from the mistake and move on. But more importantly, you really have to honestly learn from a mistake and don't repeat. Because bosses very often, is forgiving for one mistake, but repeated mistake then becomes difficult to defend.
Great advice, Latifa, and Latifa summarized it perfectly. You make a mistake, dust yourself off, move on, and don't try not to make the same mistake over and over again. It makes you better learners. And one person who also embraces that is Nadia. And Nadia, before I ask this question, I have to tell a story about you and me to the audience, because it's very connected to the question. The question is about expectation versus reality. I've got a very good memory. I'm sorry if that scares people, but I'm not a stalker. Okay, it's just I've got good memory. Many years ago, Nadia interviewed me for a job. Before I was in media and TV, I was a corporate person, and Nadia interviewed me for a job. And she was very friendly and very open in the interview. And she said to me, you know, I'm still trying to figure your generation out, because every time your generation comes for an interview, they say, I want to work in a company because I want to meet people. And that was kind of a HR joke back then. This was before Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, that every time, I mean, you HRNs probably laugh at this, that every time people came and wanted the job, it was not about money or career development or about whatever. And this generation of people are now in their 40s. Okay, and that was then. That was 2005, 2004. I said, I want to meet people. So I knowing Nadia being quite an analytical person, she actually tried to find out the reason for that answer. So again, life comes around back full circle, Nadia, 2021, we're here right here. I'm asking you that question. Expectation versus reality of fresh graduates in general. I mean, when they enter the workforce, probably in my generation then, of wanting to meet people, and the generation now, what's their expectation, and versus what's really out there in terms of the actual reality.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. And thanks, Graduate, for inviting me. And if I can just add on and sambung the story for part 2 of Ben, if you don't mind. Well, I did. I mean, we had this whole set of assessment centers, and we went through with flying colors and so on. And he was just so determined to join the company. It was an MNC. It was 2003, I think it was around that time. Actually, it was twice, Ben. One was in one company, and then later on, he came in for another interview in another company that I was in. The first one, and I remember saying that to you, and truly he did really well. He did really well, all the assessment centers, but somehow, as he said, he wants to join and meet people. We just felt that it's probably not the right culture fit for him, and I knew that he would probably do better elsewhere somehow. If you remember, I said to you, tak cukup makan belacan lagi at that point. I don't know whether you remember that. Yeah, because at that time his DM wasn't right as good. Yeah, and yeah, coming back to that, I think the reality is when you talked about expectation and reality, as Latifa has said, we have a certain expectation when we do something. So for young people, when they come in, they have a certain expectation from what they hear from their friends, from what they read, from what they probably aspire to be. But there's lots of realities which can be positive and some could be disappointing, I would say. Maybe I'll just relate to my personal story. I mean, again, sure, like Latifa, you know, I started my career many years ago, and there was no Wi-Fi, there was no, we were still using floppy disks then, and it was Sime Dhabi, my first job, and I was really happy and excited. I got a management trainee job in Sime. Came back in one of those Chinese New Year gathering, and my uncle said, "Wow, where did you get a job in Simon?" "Wow, very good," because mind you, it was 1992. Simon, very good, and you know, big company. Which estate are you working at? I'm like, no, I'm not working in an estate, because you know, Simon used to be known as plantations. That uncles and old uncles, they all some of them work in tractors, and so they relate to, you know, estate management. I said, no, I'm in HQ, you know, with my Sime Dhabi Jalan Raja Laut, and so which department you're in? Okay, guys, those days, no HR, it was personnel. Okay, I mean, those in HR can relate to this personnel department. And one of my uncles said, "What personnel? That's where they cold storage everyone." I'm like, no, you know? So you can, you know, there are many different perceptions that comes along because people then relate the perception to their own experiences in their own companies. Like, for example, my uncle who was speaking was probably having that kind of experiences in his company. I don't know, can't even remember which company it was in. But I think what's important is that you need to come into employment being ready for surprises. And I'll just put this in a few points, right? So number one, I've noticed that, you know, young graduates coming in, they try and prove themselves. And it's true, because everyone says, oh, you've got to prove yourself, you know, you work hard, you go up hard, faster. But the reality is not, because it's not just about working hard, it's also about working smart. And when I say working smart, meaning that there are many things that you got to learn. Number one, peer management. How do you deal with your peers? It's a world of collaboration today, because it's not anymore about competition, because you come in and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm one of the 10 or 20 management trainee, and there's only, few key jobs, and I really want that job, and, I'm going for it, and it's competition and so on. And that's good, I would say. Alpha talent normally would have that, and we would observe that throughout the whole training program. But I think the reality is you need to learn that to be successful, you need to be able to work with everyone else. You need to be very savvy and have the finesse of, just being competitive, but not putting down others. Number two, many people say, okay, just work and impress the boss and you'll be all right. I mean, well, in a way, you have to be like Latifah says, don't make stupid mistake like 10 times mistakes. Bosses can be forgiving, but not all the time. And it's important that you deliver your work to your boss or to your superior in the right quality level. But I think what's important is also to know that for you to be successful, especially in today's world when you have a very flat organization, is to be able to influence others as well and have that, I would call third degree influencing technique, which means you need to be seen to have that presence and the people around you, and they know that, one, you have the form, which is, you carry yourself well, you speak very well, you walk the talk, you wear the you wear the right attire and so on, but you must have substance as well. So the form and substance has to come along. And the third one is basically having that leadership presence among the people around you, because then you get it right, because you need everyone else to be able to say, hey, that's really talent, because not just your boss to think that you're a talent, but people around you. And at the last point before I pass on, I mean, of course, I can never stop talking about this. I think the last one is about being aware that your expectation when you come into a job is that you say, okay, I'm going to try and work so hard and, get there as soon as possible. There's always a shortcut. And I'll say that when I say shortcut, it's a 50-50 thing, because sometimes you hear it, there's no shortcut to success. It's true, you have to work hard, but you've got to work smart. Find a good buddy, because when you start at the new workplace, you need to understand what's happening in the culture of the workplace. So find a good buddy, someone who will be able to, take you, hold your hand and say, hey, this is how it's done here and so on. Because in different companies, you have very different culture. And I can say that because I've been in different organizations and different culture has got different undercurrents. Number two, get a good mentor, connect yourself with a good mentor, because as intelligent as you are, whether you're a first class honors degree or as smart and as resourceful as you are, unless you get a good mentor, a good sponsor, you won't get there as fast as you can, because a mentor will share with you the wisdom of knowledge and mistakes that Latifah mentioned just now. The sharing from a mentor never it beats everything else that you know. And lastly, I think just be very humble, because this is a message from my dad. Because when I first started work, I used to, you don't have your own car. No, I used to tumpang my dad lah, to go to work. And my dad is someone who went up the rank in the police. He wasn't a graduate and so on. He always says this: don't think just because you're a graduate, you're the cleverest person on earth. And when you come in, you really can learn even from the next tea lady or the guy, the pachi or the whoever who's older than you, who's been there for a while. So be very humble. And he says this, on your way up, just be nice to people, because you never know, you meet some of them on your way down. So I mean, that's a very loaded message from my dad, and never forget that. So I think it speaks a lot about being humble. Yes, you've been gifted with a lot of knowledge and you've graduated. Fantastic. I have a 23-year-old son who's also graduating next year. But I keep telling him, always keep your toes on the ground and be humble. You learn a lot from everyone around you. Okay, Ben.
Okay, well, that's just a warm-up for Nadia, because Nadia is very passionate about this topic of people development and whatnot, as is our panel. So one more question before I head over to Fong Tua and Nadia. In terms of, you've answered that question very well in terms of getting a buddy, humility, trying to take that, being patient, trying to go to the next level of being a leader. And I know young people, no offense, youngins, that you are all quite impatient, that you want to get promoted very quickly. I know a lot of HR people used to always tell me, yeah, I did a good job, I got a win, when do I get promoted? It doesn't work that way. It does take a little bit of time. I notice our panel is laughing right now because they probably mitigate these kind of conversations every day. So again, please feel free to ask questions, everyone. I apologize if I'm looking down, I'm writing things down, I'm looking at another screen, I'm trying to be humble and not be rude. So do apologize. If this is a live audience, I can write things down and try to look a little bit intelligent, but because it's virtual, this is the new norm that we are in. But Nadia, your father gave some very good advice. Be nice to people on the way up, be nice to people on the way down. It's an elevator. You're just going to stay the same whether you're going up or down. But in terms of the preparation for the working life, it's very different, isn't it? You know, the working life, like compared to academic, because in academic life, it's all about grades, CGPA, exam. You don't really compete against anybody. You're competing against yourself. It's like a game of golf. And some people believe that internships are a great place to really hone and get some experience and learn those skills. But some people believe maybe that needs to change because of the world that we live in. I mean, it's hard to do virtual internships these days because of the pandemic. So what's your views on that in terms of the best preparation for young people before coming into a workplace? Because I remember someone once told me the best place to work is a restaurant, because you'll learn about hard work and physical backbreaking work. And what you do in the office is quite easy compared to physical backbreaking work. What's your views on that?
Well, I think you mentioned internship. I think internship is a great place to start with. I mean, although some don't pay as high as Khazanah. I know Khazanah pays a lot higher than many of us. Okay.
Oh, you started the juicy topic, Nadia.
Okay. Yeah. But I do think that internship is really a great place to start, because number one, you get to understand the dynamics of the workplace. Okay, I mean, and you can make all the mistakes that you can, because you're an intern, right? But when you start working proper, we're less forgiving. Number two, you get to know yourself better as well, because sometimes when you get into a role, and most of the times you would love to get the role that you want to, but life is not as such, right? And given the last 2 years, it's been quite challenging. So everyone says just grab whatever you have. But by doing so, you understand more about yourself. What is it that you like to do? Whether you're a field person, whether you're a desk kind of a back-end person. I give an example. My son is doing his placement in the UK in 3rd year, and he was really excited about the job, and he's finishing in August this year. In the beginning, he was really excited, but wow, because it's a whole new world, and he's working for a big radar company, of course, working from home, but he's got all this mentoring sessions, onboarding, all these are really fantastic new experiences for graduates or undergraduates, right? First 3 months, really excited, learning about programming and all these new experiences. After 6 months, I said, so how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you think you like to continue on this? Just say, yeah, but I think my job is two-dimensional. I can never forget that he used the word, he's doing economics in Loughborough University. I think this job is a bit two-dimensional. I said, what do you mean? I discovered maybe I like to do more than that, not just looking at numbers in Excel sheets, is, quoting, and he's doing a credit and analyst role. And so that's so powerful to me, because it gives the person an experience of trying to experience a real working world, and at the same time finding more and discovering more about what's your needs and your aspirations, or even what's best suited for your skills and so on. And lastly, when you are in an internship, you learn so much about the real life, because and you're right, Ben. The exhaustion in being an academic world is completely different from the exhaustion at work. And I remember my first day at work, I came home and terus pensan, because you've never got used to sitting at the desk for 8 hours, right? And just making calls or doing. Yeah, I mean, well, those days we had fax machine. Okay, you go to the fax machine. I mean, who's heard of fax machine today? But yeah, those days. 8 hours, you never get used to it, because as a student, you probably have maybe the longest 4 hours lecture, and then you go and have McDonald's, or I don't know, okay, now they don't go McDonald's, they go Burger Lab or whatever. So, but when you work, you have this long day, long meetings sometimes, and you get challenged in meetings, so mentally exhausting. So you do have to prepare. So, I mean, yesterday we were just having a session with my leadership program, and we talk about mental toughness. I do think that young graduates have to build that, because there's so much expectation coming on, especially so now with a lot that is going on in the internet. But when the reality sets in, you're like, oh, I didn't expect this. So, having a good balance between your expectations and accepting the reality, I think, and enjoying the ride is so important.
Well, mental toughness, that's two very, very good words. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So thanks, Nadia, for opening that up, and really good advice right there. So I'm going to go to Fong Tuan. I'm going to ask and Fong Tuan and Azarin. I'll start with Fong Tuan first. But guys, I'm gonna let the ladies breathe a little bit. But just gonna ask you the question about preparation for the workplace. I mean, like I said earlier to Nadia and Latifa, when we at universities, all about grades, CGPA, all the above. But then we have to relearn a new skill set and the mindset when we're going into the workplace. So, I mean, Fong Tuan, I'll start with you first in terms of, when you came, because you're an engineer, you're not your typical HR person. I mean, HR all the way, you're an engineer first, more on the numerical side. And then after that, because you're a people person, you went into HR. The question I have for you, Fong Tuan, is that, did you have culture shock when you joined the company, your first job? And relating it to a lot of people, those young graduates that are coming in the door now, their culture shock, because everything's about papers, assignments, presentations. But now it's about, wow, the presentation has to be perfect. The execution has to be even more perfect than what you presented. So tell us about that culture shock. And then after that, we'll go straight to Azarin, and then we're going to ask Azarin about, how do you, in your opinion, there's no right or wrong answer, how do you unlearn and relearn when you take that step from university to the workplace? Yeah, and it's not easy, because I'm sure you can all attest that you've seen superstar academics not flourish in the workplace, and you've seen just okay students really flourish in the workplace. So Fong Tuan, I'll start with you in terms of that culture shock question.
Hey, thanks, Ben. It's always very difficult to come after Nadia, right? Because she covered everything. I think she probably have covered this culture thing in what she mentioned earlier anyway.
Sorry.
My first job was with Tenaga National. So, it's not your normal agency, even signed up, I think, right? Tenaga, 20 years ago, it's not Tenaga this now. It's rather different. And there are only two kinds of people works there. One is engineer, second, engineers. So if HR people are engineers, everyone is an engineer. So you have a few accountants here and there, but by and large, everybody's an engineer. So engineers have to do everything, right? Engineer got to do HR, engineer got to do, strategy, engineer got to do, buildings, whatever stuff. So my culture shock was, I was 21 when I graduated with an engineering degree. And because of the culture in Tenaga at that time, they just moved into Tenaga not long. Previously, it was called Lembaga Elektrik Negara. You have no idea.
LLN.
No idea what I'm talking about, right? It is called National Electricity Board in English. In Malay is Lembaga Elektrik Negara. They don't even have electric, okay? It is LLN, Lembaga Elektrik Negara. So I just moved maybe, 5, 6, or whatever years before that, the corporatization. So you can imagine, yeah? I'm certainly the very, very small minority, because I'm a Chinese, an engineer, coming back. They sent me to a little place called Port Dickson, and I was the deputy branch manager. Now, what do I know about managing people, about being a manager, right? I have no idea. So technically, you can just characterize as you are throwing someone into the deep end of the pool, never been given any training, any expectations about how to swim. You have no idea how the pool looks like. You have no idea what kind of people are in the pool. And suddenly you have direct reports who are 55 years old, 47 years old, who has been working, and their kids are like older than me. I'm supposed to manage them. But I think that is a invaluable experience that I had. I think a lot of my, my beliefs, my philosophy of how I operate and how I work actually was built during those formative years. And getting a good boss, particularly the first boss, is extremely critical. Unfortunately, you can't choose your boss, right? So I only hope if there are bosses out there who are listening, be very gentle to those people who are just joining, because you may break, their morale even before they start. So be very careful with those, young souls. And for those who are, going into the workforce soon, pray hard, because you can't choose your boss. You just got to pray and do your best. How I deal with that, culture transition. I wouldn't say shock, right? Culture transition. And I've moved to different organizations since then. Multiple different organizations, multinationals. You have Malaysian listed organizations, big GLCs, etc., etc. Is there a good culture, a bad culture? There's no such thing as good or bad culture. It is just a culture. That is how just the business behaves, and that's the tradition and the beliefs and values. What we can do, or what you can do, is particularly for graduates, right? I've got 3 things for you, simple ones. Number 1, realize in the real world, it is Game of Thrones. It is not Cinderella fairy tale. Game of Thrones. If you want to know what Game of Thrones is, you watch Game of Thrones, or better still, don't need to watch. You just flip on your Malay Mail, Malaysia Kini. You'll see Game of Thrones this last week, because Malaysian politics is Game of Thrones. Things are happening right now as we speak, right? And realize you're not passing exams anymore. You're not passing exams anymore. You're good at passing exams. Good. But there are no exams out there. You need to find solutions. And Malaysian graduates, I wouldn't say even, I say Malaysian, because I deal with most Malaysians, regardless of whether you're from the UK or from Australia or from Malaysia or from the US, have this problem. They just, throw their weight around saying that, I'm from this particular university. I'm from, an Ivy League. I'm from this university. I got this grade. I did engineering. I did political science, whatever it is. Doesn't make any difference. At least it doesn't make a lot of difference in my view, because I couldn't agree more with them. Just because you have good grades certainly does not guarantee that you will get good performance in the real world. Secondly, is take time to understand what's happening when the boss is not watching. You will have bosses, because everybody will be on the best behavior and the boss is watching. Culture is when the boss is not watching. Take time to listen, observe, because you'll learn much. It's not that dissimilar, right? You don't attend lectures, you attend tutorials, because tutorials are actually where the real learning is. Lectures are just, professors trying to get their salary done. Most of the time, they don't even lecture very well. All right. And lastly is be patient. Be patient. I was, kind of smiling a little bit when Ben was saying, you've got to be, I've got this, I've got from university, I want to get promoted like next year because I'm better, right? Well, if you are better, you don't have to ask to be promoted, because you will be. If you have to ask to be promoted, probably you are probably not there yet. And just realize this. Often you will be what I call plankton. Plankton in the food chain. You'll be the lowest in the food chain. Only small fishes eat planktons. And you guys will be planktons. Regardless of whether you're management associates or whatever you call yourself, you are plankton. Because there are sharks out there. And there are even anchovies eat you guys, right? So focus on learning. Focus on building resilience, focus on collecting experience, and you will move up naturally. When you are ready, the opportunity is there, you will be able to take it. interestingly, is even when the opportunity is there, if you're not ready to take it, it is irrelevant. So I'll stop.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Fong Tan. Look, we've only got a couple more questions, everybody, before we open it to the floor. The floor is sending it on my, Garjon is sending it on my other device right now, and there's a lot of questions coming our way. So I'm just going to preempt you to try, and this is my job as a moderator where I have to work extremely hard and smart, like you all said. I need you all to keep those questions after I ask you your opinion questions, about keeping it as tight and short and concise as possible. It's like a management meeting. Sometimes it just needs to be compact and direct and to the point, but not offensive, but inspirational. If it can be inspirational, all God bless. So, Azarin, thank you for waiting so patiently. I know you were on the edge of your seat wanting to share your views. So right now, just let it all out, brother. So now, my question is quite similar to you from Fong Ton's questions, but unlearning what you've learned and really going with a fresh mindset. Like Fong Ton said, just because you went to some fancy school doesn't really matter. You're all still a human being with a heart, legs, brain, and all of the above. So you work in a bank. I mean, I've noticed in your career, you're banking all the way, which is a very structured and systemic environment. And I come from a family of bankers. I'm the black sheep. And my brothers always tell me, when they tell the young people who work in a bank, look, it's not all about the numbers. It's what you do with the numbers. Okay, yes, you have to be financially literate, but you're not crunching figures all day long from morning to midnight. And I notice you laughing, because when you laugh, that's the truth. So what's your advice to the potential talents out there, whether they are younger or, on the mature side, in terms of unlearning what you've learned, whether it's university or from another workplace?
Okay, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Graduan, for inviting me. Actually, I stepped in for my CHRO, Penelope. She's not feeling well. So in regards to what we need to unlearn and how, between the expectation that we have academic qualification against to the world of reality, corporate world, the reality of corporate world. Let's look at it from two angles. One is from the intelligence. As we know, there is 3 IQ that we normally practice or understand today. But the latest one, the 4th IQ, have just been released. That's AQ. So in the university, in our learning, in our journey of knowledge, acquiring knowledge, we pay for that knowledge. We pay to be in the university, and we pay for someone to hand over that knowledge to us. But in the corporate world, they pay us to learn and strive, and putting all the knowledge that we have acquired into skill. But this is not possible if the attitude is not right. So first, we need to correct the attitude to learn, because you are being paid. You pay for them to give you those knowledge against the attitude where you are paid to gain knowledge, to practice your knowledge. So if we look from the IQ perspective, the intelligence perspective, there is the main IQ is intelligence, then emotional quotient, social quotient, and the latest is adaptability. Let me just take a little bit of definition of this IQ. IQ measures your comprehension ability, solve mathematics, and so on. EQ measures your ability to maintain peace, timekeeping, honors, respect, and so on. SQ, social quotient, ability to measure your network. And the latest one that psychologists have come out is the AQ. AQ is the adaptability quotient. This is whether the measure of your ability to go through rough patch in life without losing your mind. So universities, what you learn in your academic journey will cover mainly on the IQ, partly on the EQ and SQ. But in the corporate world, what you need to strive on is the EQ and SQ, the emotional quotient and the social quotient to survive. So people with high IQ will hire those who have higher SQ and EQ than them to make the team more stronger. That's how it works. That's from one perspective where academic qualification would help. Yeah, but again, we have to look at various other areas such as, the communication, for instance. In university, you communicate peer to peer. In a corporate world, you communicate peer to senior. Then you communicate even to cross-functional. Yeah, you need to drive a whole group of people, lead a whole group of people, or be part of it. So it's a different context overall in terms of communication, in terms of your interpersonal skill. Yeah. Then we go back. That's from one perspective, from the IQ and the difference, what you learn and how do you apply it. Yeah. Secondly, is from the aspect of the competency. Yeah, because competency is an element of knowledge, skills, and attitude. University can provide you that knowledge, yeah, but not all. Yeah, they provide part of the knowledge that you require in a corporate world. It's then they tested that knowledge into skills via certain project papers, theses, and so on. Yeah, so that's transforming the knowledge into skills. But still, the component of competency, there's an attitude there. So KSA, knowledge, skills, attitude. So first, to be able to transfer the knowledge to skills, you need to have the right attitude. Yeah, because that's university doesn't teach you this attitude. It's your upbringing in your family and the environment that you grow up in that will mold your attitude to be who you are today. Yeah, the knowledge will come in, and then the ability to transfer those knowledge into skills would be the main important things that you need to deliver, because you are being paid. Yeah, you are being paid to deliver that. So have the right attitude will be the key elements in thriving or even surviving in the corporate world. I hope that would say that, I remember one statement from Tan Sri Lee Lam Thai. Yeah, Tan Sri Lee Lam Thai. In his speech, he said, I don't go to any private or public university for, in my life, but I do go to the University of Life, which is, things that you can't learn unless you experience it in life. So with that, I hope the young audience, get value of my response.
No,
Thank you, Ben. Back to you.
it's a very, very valuable answer. Thank you so much for that. But I'm just going to ask you to just summarize the next question very quickly. I'll go to Fong Ton to summarize very quickly. And then we're going to open questions to the panel. The questions are coming in pretty thick and fast. So I'm just aware of time. So that's where a moderator has to work really, really hard and smart. So on that question, in your opinion, Azarian, what's the one skill that you can't walk away from at university, which is so transferable when you work, whether you're a CEO, fresh graduate, assistant manager, what's that one particular skill that we can now never run away from that we learn at university that's always prevalent at our places of work?
One skill, is it?
Skill or trade, it could be either one. Again, your opinion. You've managed people for the longest time. What's your view?
I guess it's perseverance. The ability not to give up. But the ability not to give up comes from deep from inside you, the passion and deep inside you that says, I'm here to learn. Because life without, when you stop learning, you stop living. So I'm here to learn. With this in you, you will persevere whatever circumstances that you're going to face. When you do that, you become resilient. And with resiliency, it gives birth to wisdom. We used to say, being intelligent is know what to say, right? Being smart is know how to say it. Being courage is know when to say it. But wisdom is when you decide whether you should say it or you don't. So, that's one key thing is perseverance and not, in a way, not giving up, never give up.
Okay. No, it's a good one because sorry to say this, statistics show that a lot of young people like to quit when the going gets tough. So I'm sure all of you agree. I think all of you have told me this in some shape or form once upon a time. You learn more when the going gets tough. So speaking about learning and when the going gets tough, I mean, Fong Tuan, one quick question before we go to open it up. I'll be breaking up the questions very, very shortly from the floor. Again, apart from the traditional internships, you know, joining the Cub Scouts or the debating club, the basketball team or the football team, you know, I mean, we're speaking about metaphors here. What's a good metaphor that that students can do that will give them that resilience, that leadership skill that Nadia spoke about, that Latifa spoke about, you know, like embracing the mistake? What's a great place, again, your opinion, to a great place to learn all these things that can, so when you go to the workplace, you're ready. You don't have to learn this, you don't have to learn that, you know, there's no subjects, you're ready. So where is the best place to, I call it ready school. Where is the place to go get some ready school experience? I mean, I know you're a very cross-cultured person among like everybody on this panel. So tell us your views on that.
Well, I hope there is a ready school, and I would definitely send everyone there before they come to work. But unfortunately, there aren't any. But so I'll do something, you know, a bit more practical, right? Because metaphors, sometimes young people are not very good with metaphors. So when I speak metaphors, they look at me like blankly, like, you know. So I'll try to be a bit more specific, right? Young people, they are, you know, not like us. Wisdom comes in bite forms, little small bites, right? First, read. It is staggering that, you know, when I interact with young people nowadays, I'm no longer very young, is they have no breath. They never read anything, nothing. So the moment they leave school, that's it. They don't read anything. They just, you know, go on YouTube every day. Every time they want to do anything, how to. And there's no manual. They just go to how to YouTubes or TEDx because it's 15 minutes, right? And that 15 minutes, they assume that they can distill, you know, very complex concepts. You need to spend some time, right? Read. Number two is, I couldn't agree more with Nadia as well. Find a mentor to inject some wisdom and depth, because when you interact with people, wisdom doesn't come for free, right? Either you know, spend time collecting those wisdom through pain and, you know, sweat and blood and tears, or you speak with someone who has already done it. At least you can shortcut that process. Three, what I call how to get horizontal capabilities, like those transferable, is volunteer for community and social projects. There are many. COVID-19 now, you know, avail us to many of these projects. But be safe when you do it. And finally, I heard someone just now said, I know, go to work in a restaurant. I think, Ben, you said it, right? Go work in a restaurant. I couldn't agree more as well. But instead of a restaurant, I would say, go do some part-time sales or customer service job. The more difficult the product, the better. Why? When you are actually having to deal with conflicts, deal with difficult things, having to have like thick face and solve all these issues, you build resilience anyway. And trust me, I worked in a bank before, selling credit cards, peddling credit cards at malls when we were allowed was the most difficult, you know, thing to do. But I guarantee you, if you have that kind of experience, you'll be ready for anything that anyone would throw at you, because you would say, yeah, can you do that? Yep. It's a shitty assignment. Okay, I can do it. The shittier, the better. Why? Because I learned the most when it's shitty assignment. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Fong Tuan. Okay, now everyone, there's a lot of questions coming in, so this goes to show you how engaging you all are. I'm gonna select one question per speaker. And please don't kecil hati with me why I've assigned you this question. Try to answer it as inspirationally as possible, informative as possible, but not too long, because I know all of you are very passionate about people development. I mean, your resumes are super impressive. I mean, Fong Tuan and Nadia, I've known you for a long time, and this as well as Hazarin and Latifa. I mean, your CVs are really impressive. I just got a confession to make. I stalked all of them on LinkedIn these last couple of days just to get to know them better, and I said, wow, very, very impressive resume. So I'm just going to repeat the question. I'm just going to assign the question right now. I feel like a teacher. So Latifa, this is a question from Muhammad Arfan. The future of the workplace, what's it going to be with the pandemic? I know I assign you this question because Khazanah is all about transformation and change. Forgive me for sounding like a newspaper or business publication, but that's what that's my perception of Khazanah, change. So, and then I'm going to move to Fong Tuan. Fong Tuan, this is a question from Rabiatul. Forgive me if I mispronounce your names, everyone. It's about relationships. Nadia spoke about relationships just now, but how do you build relationships with people? It's not just about the work, but sometimes it's about, do you guys masak the same recipe, or go to the same hairdresser, or support the same football team? But that's got nothing to do with work. That's not fair, but that's how chemistry and relationships are built. So Fong Tuan, I'll assign you that question. And then Nadia, qualities of a graduate in a pandemic time. This is a question by Lavanya. Okay, we live in a very, very complicated mafan world, okay, that we are working from home, we're working in a cabin, we're all frustrated, but we are so grateful, alhamdulillah, that we have a job. How does a graduate stand out when the employer can't physically see that talent? That's the question for you, Nadia. And then Azaren, this is a question that's come from Alia, and she's asking about when is the best time to do an internship during your university cycle? Like if it's a 4-year course, should you do it in the 3rd year or the 2nd year? And I'm just gonna take her question one step further. What kind of skill set should she be trying to learn from that internship? Because gone are the days where you just rock up to the internship and say, okay, I'll make coffee. Okay, I'll photocopy. Okay, I'll look at the numbers and do the work that nobody wants to do. Right now, and I think Fong Tuan, you told me this once upon a time, right now, the interns can say, I want to learn this. If you don't teach me this, I'm gone. It's a different world, okay? So, I'm all clear about the questions? Give me a thumbs up. Yep, all right, graduate thumbs up. So, Latifa, I'll start with you. The future of the workplace, I'm asking you to be a futurist.
Hi, Ben, thank you for that question. That's really the critical and most relevant question at the moment, since we are all preparing to return to the office. It's actually quite open at the moment. I don't know, even at Khazanah, we are still figuring that out in terms of, in the near term, what it would be for us. When we were hit by the pandemic and when everyone had to work from home, we scrambled, but lucky for Khazanah, we were quite ready for it. So it didn't quite disturb or dampen from us getting to deliver what we needed to deliver. But I think moving forward, things are changing and things has changed. Employees right now, there are many people who are rethinking and reviewing their position about work, their views about work, their views about life. And this pandemic for Malaysia in particular, I think has been really quite hard emotionally, because many of us have been so lucky. We have had steady growth year on year since the late 70s. Even though we had, a few dips, but there was only one sector that was bad and the other sector was okay. And the country as a whole, except for, of course, that 1997-98 of the Asian economic crisis, the rest of the time, it wasn't like a major catastrophe. Like we have not been into war. We have not had to rebuild. But this pandemic have undone a lot of things, have shaken a lot of the norms and the standards and the process that we all were used to. So there will be a lot of new expectations that we need to address, right? So Khazanah, although we are a bit luckier than most because we are fairly small, and we are also a group of people who are mostly about the same in terms of education background, the type of work that we do, is it's quite how to say intellectual work, that we don't have to go to the fields, we don't have to. So our work is a bit more insulated from real.
True.
Yeah? So I think even then there's still a lot of changes happening. So what I think graduates have to be ready for is you have to be honest with yourself about what you want and how you want. And that's where I feel so envious of today's graduates compared to my generation or many of us before. Because in the past, you don't really get to choose. You don't really get to express your preference of how to work. Today's graduate, today's workforce have a lot more lucky in that sense that you can actually not dictate, maybe express your preference of how you want, and it's perfectly okay. That's number one. Number two, you can also work from anywhere you want. You can choose to work for a company in New York, sitting here. You can choose to work, and service a company in Shanghai and sitting here. So I think those are some of the changes that we have to come to terms with. So I'm going to take a bit of time to explain a little bit, because from my background, I worked in Malaysia for a long time, and then I worked overseas for quite a long time, and I worked in China. And when I was working in China, I was covering the region. I was covering, from Korea, Japan to Australia, New Zealand, as well as India. So I've seen how workers, how students, how graduates view work, view changes in the different geographies and the different countries. I must say that Malaysians are very flexible in terms of our ability to adapt, our ability to interact, our ability to accept other people's views. We are we are world class in that sense. We can adjust ourselves, we can be flexible, and we can learn pretty quickly how to interact. Where we probably lack, I feel, is a little bit about that really, how should I say, drive to really be expert in a certain technical field. So let's take an example. You look at computer science, the current technology, data science, those mathematics, right? The reality is, to move forward as an economy, as a country, we are a small country, only 30 million people. So if we want to grow that pie to make everybody become better, we need to sell to the world. In order to sell to the world, you need to compete with the world. So I think that is going to be that one point that any graduate anywhere in the world will still have to grapple with. The reality is, the future of work in the future, in the coming years, in the coming decades, is going to be constantly changing by technology, constantly changing by new inventions. So therefore, we Malaysians must be willing and ready to take and accept that change and run with it. You can continue to scream, yell, and kicking and say, I don't want to change, I don't want to change. The world don't care. The world will leave you behind and they will move on. True. So I think that is probably that key point that I want to leave behind, that, for the graduates to be ready for. Be ready to accept those change, be ready that that future of work will continue to change.
Okay. Now, well answered, because it's what the question was asked by Muhammad Afnan, not Arfan. I said Arfan earlier. Sorry about that, Afnan. My apologies. But Afnan's question was very good in the sense that must you be so flexible to work in the Bay Area or work in the somewhere in the Banduks, But like you said, you've answered that so well, Latifa. The world doesn't care. This is what it is. You want a job in this very, very tough environment, you got to step up. And you know what? We can talk, another topic that one day we can talk about is like those people who can't hack working from home? Do we let them go?
But Ben, one thing that I also want to remind our young Malaysians is, you also have a huge advantage than anybody else, because Malay as a country, we are quite egalitarian in the sense that anybody can go and compete and do. Culturally, we are quite, how should I say, we are quite open to changes. So Malaysians must grab that opportunity to go and not be afraid to not become a worker. So I would encourage a lot of young people to dream to be an employer.
That's right.
Go out there and don't always, don't come out a graduate and say, where do I go for work? Maybe you don't have to go and work for somebody else. Maybe you just have to go and invent and create. And then I think that reward will be so much more. I wish I had lived in this current environment, because then I think, of course, hindsight, you can do more. But I'm just so excited, super excited for our graduates, because I think the world is out there for you to go and play the way you like it. And I'm sure you shall do that.
The spirit of usahawan, to be an entrepreneur, to be your very own boss. Yes, that's the generation that this generation lives in. Thank you so much, Latina. Fong Tuan, we're going to ask you about relationships. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employer, you need to build relationships with people. It's not about so much about the skill set, about knowing the people in the business. So again, people are really funny. Some people pilih bulu, some people don't. But how do you build relationships with them? I mean, and sometimes it's those common denominators that have nothing to do with work that help build that relationship to create a long-lasting work relationship and friendship at the same time.
Okay, that's from Rabiato, right?
Yes, that's from Rabiato.
Yeah, it's we could talk about relationships all day long, right? So I'm keep it short.
Sum it up for us, bro.
Yeah, time is of the essence. I would just like to reflect what Azarin talked about, the quotients earlier, right? So you have the intelligence quotient, and then you have the social quotient, emotional quotient, and the adversity quotient. Let's take two from these quotients, three probably: the IQ, the EQ, and the SQ. A lot of people talk about, it's about who you know. It's not about what you know now, right? It's about who you know, and you get ahead by, doing and using who you know. I kind of agree 50% of it, because who you know will get you to a level, but what you know will get beyond that level. The question you should be asking is, do you know how to use who you know with what you know? Now, you know people, but you have no idea what to do. So that doesn't make sense. You know what to do, but you have nobody wants to work with you. So that doesn't make sense. So the questions that you should be asking yourself, guys, it's all of us will build relationships anyway. It's difficult now because, it's sad as well. A lot of you will be joining an organization. If you're joining Samsung, or I presume if you're joining Setia, Khazanah, or M-Bank, if you're not in the front line, you will never see your colleague. And God forbid, if you decide to leave within a couple of months or whatever, because there's no fit, there will be instances where you join an organization and you leave the organization without even seeing anyone physically. And to me, that is awfully sad. And I'm sure all the HR directors and all the leaders are trying very hard and hoping and praying and do our bit to ensure that we can get out of this pandemic as soon as we possibly can, so that we can give a more stable, meaningful, relationship building kind of a workplace where people interact organically, rather than interact like what we're doing now. But this is what we have at the moment, so we can't do much. So the three questions I will leave with Rabiatul and the rest of you who are listening. Yeah, you ask three questions to yourself. Building relationships or not, is you have to build relationship with yourself first. That's first. Do I bring my best every day to work? The day that you say no, perhaps it's time to leave. Do I bring my best to work? And I don't mean go to work. Go bring your best to work means anything that you do, right? Secondly is, do people want to work with me? Not whether you want to work with people, because the moment you don't want to work with people, I guarantee you, nobody wants to work with you as well. Do people want to work with you? And third, can I make an unpopular gut call, particularly when it comes to people, when it is needed, no matter how difficult it is? So those are the 3 questions. If you can answer these 3 questions honestly, do I bring my best? Yes. Then you are on the way to building meaningful relationship. Do people want to work with me? Yes. Then you have already built meaningful relationships. And can I make unpopular gut call when needed, especially when it comes to people? And then you can, and you remain friends with those people that you had to make difficult calls, then you really have made really strong and relationship that lasts, because friends understand when you have to make difficult calls. So I cannot be more succinct than that. So I'll leave it at that.
No, that's very good, Fong Ton, because what you said in essence is self-reflection. You've got to reflect before you move forward. As they say, reflection is the hallmark of a champion. It may sound a little bit cliche, but it's so true. And if you're on the negative side of answering those questions, maybe you have a challenge on your hand. Nadia, I know you were, early in your career, you worked in recruitment for a while as well. And that's why I probably subconsciously directed this question at you in terms of the qualities of graduate in this pandemic time. It's very unfair and very tough for graduates these days to look for jobs, because it's not all about knocking on doors, or maybe like you can just enter a company and submit your CV and charm your way to getting an interview or whatnot. You can't do that anymore because you can't leave your house. So maybe for this question by Lavanya is, maybe you can give our audience what kind of tangible qualities and intangible qualities and characteristics should young graduates build themselves with, or try to build themselves up to try to get a good, I don't like the word job, I like the word career. Because anybody can get a job, but it's very difficult to have a career. When I say career, you start from trainee to executive to manager to senior manager, maybe head of department, GM, HOD, and then maybe the big marketing director position, ED, and maybe the big CEO and MD position one day. Someone said on the panel, we've got to be patient. That takes time. But what's your view, Nadia, on the tangible and intangible qualities to build that you can have a prosperous career?
Okay, so I think when you look at it, of course, we evolve over times, and there's anything that's happened over the 20 years, 10 years, or the last 5 years. And Latifah spoke about the workforce of the future. So we talked about the crisis, even through leadership. We even talked about the change of requirements in leadership, right? But within graduates, I would say it hasn't gone very far from where it was pre-pandemic, but I just want to focus on a few points. So number one, I think it's already so challenging being a graduate within an economic situation that is going down, and it's now compounded by the situation that we are in now, where there's hiring freeze everywhere. There's not much, you can't go and have a face-to-face interviews, on-screen recruitment, and so on. So I think I'll split it into two. One, if let's say you haven't got a job, so you're now trying to go for a job, I think you need to be, number one, be very creative, because if on-screen recruitment and onboarding, you need to make sure that you are present on screen. And that's difficult because not everybody can do that very well, because some people are just so not, I would say, not comfortable. Secondly, when I say creative, meaning that you've got to be able to come up with other ways of how you can build your portfolio or present yourself, right? Rather than just selling communication skills. You probably want to come up with a vlog or whatever, something that's different. And I'm saying this because, as a recruiter, and I'm sure all of those in the panel would agree with me, we see hundreds and hundreds of CVs. And to be honest, sometimes you see someone suddenly something that's completely different, and you're like, oh, that's different. So for example, I actually hired one of my team member, Leanne, I don't know whether she's listening in, she wrote to me directly on LinkedIn. And I thought, and not only she wrote to me a lengthy note, and I was really impressed on what she was saying, because completely different, not the typical standard. I get hundreds of those saying, oh, I saw this opening, can you connect me with that? I'm like, oh my God, this again. But that's so different. So be creative. Number two, if you happen to be in an interview, you have to be participative, because you've got to show that you have that energy and that sort of like passion for the job. You're hungry for the job, because I don't know, sometimes you get into that interview, whether it's on screen or off screen, and you ask the candidate a question and then they just answer you a one-liner, and you're like, okay, so and I don't know, I get really chased off when I get that kind of answer, because I'm like, do you want a job or not? Because if I have to probe you all the time, tak sabarnya, so you have to be showing that you are really passionate about whatever question that you're being asked for, that you've got to build that presence, whether it's on screen or off screen, but don't overdo it lah, because some people go on and on and on, and then like, I do this, I do that, and then you're thinking, okay, that's enough. Thirdly, if you are asking questions, ask questions, ask a lot of questions, and ask the right question, because by asking questions, you tell us how prepared you are, how much you've gone in and research about, the company or whatever. Now, I'm I'm not an atypical recruiter, because when I go in and interview, I know everyone's come in and they're all prepared. They'll prepare all the right questions and right answers, because they know this interviewer is going to ask about this company, blah, blah. I sometimes just get them off the ground by saying, so what do you think of the current road bully situation, for example? And then I realized most of our candidates, like what Fong Chuan says, either they don't read beyond whatever they are studying, or they're just so focused on narrow into a certain area. They just can't articulate that, because at the end of the day, we have seen your CV. We know you have graduated from Warwick University or UTM, whatever it may be. But what we want to know is, do you have that critical thinking, and will you be able to connect the dots? I want to know, how do you handle yourself in situations where it's beyond your work area? So I think graduates needs to be going beyond what you're just studying. And I think, if I were to compare, to be fair, if I were to compare to most graduates, there are some who are really, really good. And like what Latifah says, you guys are really lucky, because you're living in a different world as compared to us 20, 30 years. There was no mentorship, there was no graduate, there was no whatever lah, So we literally just had to send this CVs to 200 companies and hoping it lands somewhere, and print it on a Word perfect whatever, and now you have all kinds, Canva CV and macam-macam lah, so just make sure that you build that your presence. And lastly, if you have got the job and you are in the company, make sure that you do something beyond your current job. So I think Fong Chuan mentions about being involved in projects, and volunteer, raise your hand for projects, and show that you are willing to do beyond. You're like a sponge, that you want to learn as fast as possible. So I think that's so important. And I'm going to summarize that by saying, at the end of the day, it's these two words: personal branding, right? I know a lot of people underestimate that, but start young, when you guys are starting your career, it's so important to form out what is your personal branding. 3 points. Number one, who are you? Basically what defines you as a person, your values and what you believe in, and so on. Number two, what can you bring into the table from your studies, from your projects, from your experiences? And thirdly, what is it that you stand for? I think my two kids, I have two boys, 18 and 23, they're very, very strong in their views, and sometimes they'll say, no, I won't work for that company. And so why? Because they're not into whatever ESG, and I'm like, okay, so these are important points that you have to sort of define yourself with, and then you can then be the one that is probably showing up shinier than the 500 or 1,000 applications. You do know that everyone else now, somehow everybody seems to be getting so many A's and high CGPAs. So I don't know whether, I keep telling my boss, I don't know whether you guys are much cleverer than us, or it's just so much easier to get high grades these days. But everyone seems to be coming up with great CGPAs. So you've got to be different, yeah. So that's my point. Then.
Thanks, Nadia. And then we're going to go to Azarin about the question about the skills that a person should not demand is a strong word, but just ask politely what kind of skills they can learn. And then, just in the spirit of time, because I have to wrap up straight after this, I'm going to ask all of you with this to just leave our audience with one word. One word advice. It cannot be more than one word. If it's a sentence, I'll cut you off. Okay. So Azharin, what's your advice for Alia in terms of the skills that she should be trying to get from internships? Like her
Thanks, Ben. I think one part of a question is when the best time to do internship.
Right.
The best time is not at the final semester.
Okay.
Do it before that so that you can feel the difference before and after you does those internship back in the university and how you apply it. You will see it from a different perspective in totality.
That's good advice.
Yeah. So what skill set required? First, you need to set your mindset, the right mindset. Yeah, I'm going to go into this internship. I want to learn. I want to grow. So with that kind of mindset, you'll be humble. Yeah, and then the next one, you need to be resourceful. You need to be resourceful. You need to polish your interpersonal skill because you need to be resourceful. Because you need to ask people, where can I get this? Where can I get this? So you must have that humility in you, and a very, you want to grow, kind of attitude there. Yeah. So with that, then the other part of it, we like in MBank, we don't allow internship unless there is commitment from the area that need an intern, right? So we want commitment. We want the coach, whoever that is going to manage or supervise this intern, to provide us the 3 months, the whole duration of internship, what he's going to hand over, or the transition of knowledge, the knowledge sharing part. We will require that before we allow the person to actually take interns in. Secondly, we will look from the environment of that area. I don't put an intern in a trading floor of currency or forex, yeah, forex exchange. So we have to look at the environment too. So it got to be a conducive environment where learning can take place. So it's a two-way deal. You come with the learning mindset, yeah, with learning want to grow. You are humble, and then we provide you a place where we will nurture you, and we hope that you will bloom. Yeah. So it's a two-way deal.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I hope that will answer Alia's questions.
No, it did, because it is a two-way street. Because I think what we all have to notice is that if we come to workplace, doesn't mean they're a big branded company. They have the resources to give you that allocation of guiding you and getting you all to do some meaningful work. And also, I'm sure you all can attest to this, that just because you're an intern, we're not going to ask you to do mediocre work. We're going to ask you to do actually proper work, putting slides together, crunching figures, analytics. The list goes on and on and on, going through data. We live in a data-driven world. So thank you so much to the panel for answering all those questions. In my opinion, we're just getting warmed up. We can go on for the next couple of hours. All we need is a few Starbucks or Coffee Bean coffees or some teh tarik, but we all have to stay at home and make, our own coffee. So I'll blend you all coffee next time. Thank you so much to Azharin bin Abdul Senior VP HR Relationship Management. Thank you so much to Latifah Dawood, Head of Strategic Human Capital Management at Khazanah National. Thank you, Nadia Tan Abdullah, from the great company of SP Setia. Thank you, Mr. Fong Tuan, who is the HR and General Affairs Director. But before they go, and before they give you the most colorful goodbye, Rajuan goodbye, one word only, huh? One word, no long word, one word. Okay, Latifah, Queen Latifah, like the rapper, I'll start with you. Sorry? Latifah, volume.
You're on mute.
It always happens. It always happens in the virtual world.
I said value. That's the word I want people.
Okay.
Value.
Nadia.
Reflect.
Reflect. Just like Fong Tuan was saying earlier. Fong Tuan, you can't say reflect.
Buoyancy.
Buoyancy. Always so chunky like you, Fong Tuan. And Azharin.
Grit.
Grit. So grit, buoyancy, reflect, and value. Hashtag those 4 words. Hashtag Rajuan Aspire 2021. Hashtag the time, 4:26 p.m. with me, Ben Ibrahim. You don't have to hashtag me, Ben Ibrahim, but 4:26 p.m. It's been a wonderful session. Panel, I look forward to stalking you on your LinkedIn, sending you thank you messages, happy birthday messages, Hari Raya messages, Chinese New Year messages, all of the above. Take care. You've been wonderful. You are rock stars. Grudge and Aspire 2021. Stay tuned, everybody. In the next couple of minutes, we've got another cool panel talking about this cool topic, hybrid working culture. Only right here on the one and only Grudge and Aspire 2021. We'll catch you soon. Say goodbye, panel, in your most creative way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Great
Thanks,
session.
Thank you.
You're wonderful. Amazing.
All right,
job.
man. Thank you. Thank you, Nadia.